Like everyone, I think, I occasionally wonder about the mark that I will leave behind in the world. The size of that question mark, I think, is maybe a little bigger for those of us who do not have children. But regardless of the size of our family, our wealth, our careers, each and every one of us leaves some mark on this world. I don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it today, but I've recently been curious about a sense of our carbon footprint as legacy. That is something that will far outlive us and perhaps outlive our memories. But considering how to become an ancestor this week, I really appreciated the reading from today that I found. Susan Orleans framed the question of legacy as a piece of writing. The impact of each of our lives exists within the context of the histories that we inherit. Imagining that we could leave a legacy that was not shaped by what's gone before is pretty silly. We might more rightly see ourselves and our lives as part of a much larger story. There are huge parts of the story already written long before our lives enter the picture. And as the question of legacy reminds us, the story will continue long after each of us are dead. Perhaps we can see our life adventure as one chapter. And there's comfort in that wider context. Because concluding the story and making everything okay doesn't all rest on our shoulders. But we do have our 20 or so pages to make our impact on the plot. That got me thinking, what can be achieved in a chapter of a good book? One of the things we might do is make meaning out of the chapters that came before by introducing some new idea or discovery. There seem to be plenty of that type of change going on today as we grapple with histories of racism and exploitation. Or perhaps closer to home, you're doing the hard work of reaching clarity around your own family history. Our chapter may be about bringing some new insight to better understand what came from before. Or maybe your chapter includes something completely new in the mix. Maybe you have an adventurous spirit. You're an artist or the first one in your family to make a particular change. Maybe you're a breaker of glass ceilings of some kind. Being a first at whatever is a great plot twist in our story. Or maybe your chapter is full of heart. Who doesn't love a good romance in a book? Some in this congregation have been blessed with the love of a lifetime. And the ways that you love your children, and even the way you love each other as friends, is really beautiful. I firmly believe that loving relationships are an inherent good, a real contribution to the world, and maybe that's part of how you move the story forward. Sometimes the plot is less about love and more about resolutions or letting go. That's an equally important plot development in a story. Some relationships need radical change or even ending for forward progress to be made. Or maybe your chapter is just about integration, celebrating the successes that came before and laying a foundation for what comes next. A very wise person in my life often reminds me that we cannot grow and integrate our learning at the same time. Those are different tasks. Even in a great book, some chapters are less flashy, They're just about people living their lives as the pieces of the plot are integrated. Of course, becoming an ancestor isn't solitary business. The very idea of being an ancestor suggests passing something down to other people. And some of you who have been very involved in Tapestry understand that this community is part of your becoming an ancestor. I am truly humbled by the time, money, heart, and literal blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into building this institution. It has clearly been a prominent piece of some people's legacy. And still, I want to remind every single person listening today that being here, being part of this community, even in very small ways, just showing up, makes an impact. As a faith community, Tapestry is part of a historical context of religion in America. Yes, it's a small part, but Tapestry is a chapter of its own. Part of why I'm a minister is that I believe that liberal faith is a good, a resource, a gift worth building for future generations. Being part of a faith community isn't just about having our spirits fed or consuming inspiration. By participating together, we build a community that's stable and sustainable. It's something worth sharing with others, and I hope something about that excites you. There are a bunch of different faith communities that we could choose to be a part of course, and that's where choice and impacting the wider story come into play. As you all know, religious history is complicated. There's a lot of violence and mayhem in the preceding chapters, a whole lot of it. There's also generosity, comfort, healing, and hope in the history of religion. As a liberal faith, Unitarian Universalism has tried to make choices oriented toward building a better future for all people, not just honoring the past. And your participation here, in ways small and large, makes you a shaper of the history of religion. And this chapter that we're writing together is an important one. Becoming an ancestor is something most people aspire to, not to be famous, but just to have a small impact and to be remembered by a few people. But for what? For what would you most like to be remembered? It's a unique question with a unique answer for each person, I think. It's a question with a unique answer for each person. This is not a question to answer with a generic right answer. For what would you most like to be remembered? Without answering that, we lose out on a chance to shape our legacy. Becoming an ancestor can be a choice, an action, a journey. It's something that we can do, not just something that happens to us. Amen.